Well, it's spring, so we know that the primary election is right around the corner. And with the primary election, they always have the candidates, they always announce who's running for different offices. Then there's the second part, where a lot of times these petitions and nominations are challenged. And they go through a process in court. And we recently had two cases that were decided here. Travis Shuley, he was a Republican, was challenging Bill Schuster for Congress in the 9th Congressional District, which now, since it was reapportioned, will include all of Fayette County plus part of Greene and Washington County, in addition to other 9 counties stretching all the way out to Hollidaysburg, which is another topic for another time. But at any rate, he was thrown off the ballot, and Bill Schuster now will be the only candidate on both Republican and Democratic ballots. So he'll be assured victory in the primary and also in the general election. And also you had Gary Gearing, who had filed to run against Tim Mahoney. He filed as a Republican, though. But there was some question about, was Tim Mahoney behind this or not or whatever. Gary had said that a constable told him that Tim actually served him with the papers. Tim denied it, saying he just was trying to, kind of more or less do someone a favor or whatever by recommending somebody. So we'll never really get to the bottom of that anyway. But that's not really my point. My point is that the whole way the process works is very cumbersome and very complicated. And for anybody, particularly those who are running for the first time, it's very difficult to kind of maneuver. And it really makes you wonder, why do we even have this process in the first place? Shouldn't you be able to just, you want to run for an office? Okay, you maybe pay a fee, maybe you do a background check, whatever, something like that, just something pretty perfunctory. No, what we end up with here in Pennsylvania, there's all kind of different requirements. There's different thresholds. For, I think it's 300 signatures for state legislator, then you have to get 1,000 if you want to run for Congress. And the thing about it is that it's very difficult, is that you have to depend on people to tell you that, number one, that there's a registered voter, because you have to be a registered voter in order to sign a petition. But then you also have to be, if you're running as a Republican, you have to get 300 Republican signatures, which, as we know here in Fayette County, can be somewhat difficult because the Democrats outnumber the Republicans so heavily. But, then there's questions about signing it. Did you put a nickname down? Did you give your real name? Was it Mike and you're signed in at the voter precinct as Michael? What about your address? Have you moved since the last time? Say maybe you moved in December. You haven't notified the election bureau yet. You're going to be voting probably in the same precinct anyway. Who cares? Well, now your address, though, on the registration form or on the petition, isn't going to match what's on the registration form. So it's a big mess, and it's very complicated. I think that the Travis Shuley, where he kind of got tripped up, was he had some people who signed his petition and then actually registered to vote later on in the day. If they had registered to vote and then signed his petition, they would have been okay. Also, in his case, apparently he had some people who really weren't aware of exactly which district they lived in, which, hey, a lot of times people don't know that. These districts, they change, and especially if you're on a borderline. So the whole thing is just very complicated and very cumbersome and kind of very easy to trip up, particularly somebody who's new to the process. And what that kind of makes you wonder is this a form of incumbency protection? And is this designed more just to protect incumbents? Because incumbents, they've been through this before, they know the process, they know how it works, they're able to avoid the pitfalls, and then they just sit back. And whether they actually do it or not, that they certainly have vested interest in seeing that there's nobody running against them. I mean, let's face it. So it makes it a lot easier. They don't have to spend money in advertising and so forth if they don't have a candidate. So that they're sitting back looking and trying to be sure. And if there is a chance that maybe they could get somebody thrown off the ballot, well, they're probably going to try and do that. Now, I'm not saying that's what happened here, but in these particular cases, but certainly you would think that there would be an interest there. And you just have to think that why is this process so cumbersome if it's not meant to protect incumbents? And unfortunately, it's one of those things that will probably never be changed because the incumbents, they don't want to see it changed. Yeah, they want to make it as difficult as possible for anybody running against them. So it's one of these things that's never really talked about. It's not one of these things that's not really mentioned a lot. But you really have to wonder, why is it so cumbersome? Why can't you just go down, you fill out a form, whatever, hey, this is my background, whatever, maybe you could do criminal checks or something like that, and that's it, you're on the ballot. Why can't people just be allowed to run? Somebody challenging Gary Gering's thing said, well, he switched back and forth between parties. Like, what does that matter? What does that matter? Shouldn't it be the people? Shouldn't they have to decide whether somebody flipping back and forth is something that bothers them? Why can't they be just allowed to run and then let the voters decide? Why do they got to jump through all these hoops? And and then if they didn't dot that I across that T, they're stricken from the ballot, and then candidates are allowed to run unopposed. Now, I think we really need to look at this fundamentally, and really look at making some changes to the to this system. It really is, I think, much too heavily in favor of incumbents. So we're going to take a break right now. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
At theheraldstandard.com, our mission is to provide news, information, and services to enable our communities to prosper. Every day, we strive to achieve this goal through 3 dynamic products. Wake up each morning to a copy of the Herald-Standard.com newspaper delivered to your home. Enjoy the e-edition and exact replica of our print product on your computer, tablet, or smartphone. Or secure unlimited access to our full-coverage digital news site online at heraldstandard.com. One local news leader, 3 great options.
Okay, we're back now, and in the first part we were talking about the kind of a personal pet peeve of mine about the all these requirements for candidates to run, and then you see they're challenged, and some are thrown off the ballot, and some aren't. But it just makes for you just kind of wonder why it has to be so cumbersome. But let's talk. They want to talk about the election. And one of the things that I think is kind of sad in a way is the lack of candidates in this election. Locally, we're down to only two local races in the State House in the 49th District. Democrat Pete Daly will be challenged by Randy Barley, and that's the only Democratic race on the local ballot. And really, that only includes a small part of Fayette County, and in California, in that area over in Washington County. And also then in the 50th District, where you have Mark Fisher and George Toothman, who are running for the Republican nomination in the 50th District to run against Bill DeWeese, who is unchallenged on the Democratic side. Typically you have several more races, so this is, having only 2 local races is different. And really, it's kind of a shame that I think that we don't have more candidates being challenged, and voters don't have more of a choice. Now, there are several other races, statewide races. We have there's 5 candidates running on the Republican ticket for the U.S. Senate, and you have 2 Democrats running. Bob Casey is the incumbent, and so he'll have a challenge here in the spring primary. And then also you have 2 candidates running for Attorney General, Kathleen Kane and Patrick Murphy. And then for Auditor General you have 2 Republicans, Frank Pinto, and you have John Maher running. And that's it for the statewide. So there will be some interest, of course, with the U.S. Senate race, although you would certainly think that Bob Casey is the overwhelming favor, at least for the Democratic primary. The Republican, that should be an interesting race, and then we'll see. Look forward to the general election. Now, of course, there is the main race that will be coming up. Of course, with the Republican presidential nomination, and this will be big because Pennsylvania is a big state, has, I believe, the 5th or 6th highest number of delegates. And of course, you have Rick Santorum, former United States Senator from Pennsylvania, running against George Romney and Newt Gingrich. And so it's going to be very interesting to see. It'll be very interesting to see how much, maybe if they do any campaigning here. But Pennsylvania will play a crucial role in nominating the Republican president. So we'll see how that works out here, and see what the Republicans in Pennsylvania make their wishes known in the primary, which will be held April 24th. So that's it for On the Mark today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you later.